Laura from Link to Yourself. Today I want to talk to you about what to do when you're getting overwhelmed. A lot of the people I've been talking to have been telling me how overwhelmed they're getting. They're all high achievers, driven women who want to get a lot done, and they frequently engage in really big projects like organizing events or writing books, or they're constantly jumping from one launch to another. And it's easy to get overwhelmed and lose your creativity in the process. Well, let's talk about what you can do right now to avoid getting overwhelmed, or if you're already overwhelmed, to overcome it. So the first thing you need to do is eliminate all unnecessary stressors from your life. And this includes telling your friends that you're going to be doing this so that they don't get mad at you if you don't hang out with them or go out as often. Hang out only with friends who pull you up, are optimistic, and help you be a better you. But also, if you can, make sure that you have a little mastermind group or are able to meet and hang out with people who do the same thing that you're trying to do so that you can pull each other up. The value of teamwork is way underestimated. It brings you a lot of benefits. So as much as possible, if you can create relationships with other people who are going through the same thing, do that. It'll be really helpful to you. Finally, get clear on what you're willing to compromise on during this time. You're not going to have time for everything you've been doing so far. You're not going to have time to hang out with friends, probably. You're going to have to give up most of your free time. You're going to have to give up most of your me time. Get clear on the things that you are willing to compromise on and on the things that you aren't willing to compromise on. Things that you aren't willing to compromise on should be, for instance, sleep, some level of physical exercise, and some level of personal or relationship time so that you can stay sane during this thing. You need to sleep, and you also need to meditate and take good care of yourself. Now let's get down to the meat of the matter. What do you do to avoid getting overwhelmed, or if you're already overwhelmed, to get out of that rut? First, you make a list of everything you have to do. If you're writing a book, write down that you have to select the title, the subtitle, that you have to write the copy on the back cover, that you have to create an outline, that you have to create an extended outline, that you have to make drafts, everything. Make a list of that. And then through everything, and then take every step and ask yourself, is this something that I have to do, or is this something that someone else can do? It's really, really important to delegate. You don't have enough time to do everything yourself, and the more you can spare yourself of work, the better it is for you, the more able you will be to work productively and to be creative and to really put out your best work. So here, I want you to repeat after me. Not doing it all does not make me lazy, it makes me smart. Let's do it again. Not doing it all does not make me lazy, it makes me smart. Too many women think that just because you're not getting it all done, just because you're not micromanaging it all, not everything is happening exactly the way you want it to happen, that somehow means you're not good enough or that you're not putting out a good enough job. Leave the perfectionism home. A big project is not meant for that. A big project is for you to really put out everything you've got, put out your best, but there's a difference between giving your best and giving your best in the meat of it and exhausting yourself trying to make it all be perfect. Trust me, honey, no one's going to be noticing those little details. It's going to be all about the meat of the matter, what you're really portraying through it, what you're really bringing into it, how you're making people feel. That's what people really care about. You want to organize a good event, focus on that. Don't worry about all the little things. Most people don't notice what goes wrong. Most people don't notice one little typo or the fact that one word is not exactly the way you wanted it to be. It'll still touch people. It doesn't have to be perfect. Finally, break the tasks that remain that you've decided you have to do. Break them down in long-term tasks and short-term tasks. Long-term tasks you can establish habits for. This will make sure that over time, as you're tackling it, let's say over 3 months, you get into this habit of doing something every single day. That chunks it down tremendously. So if you are writing a first draft of your book, for instance, you can start with saying that every day at 9 a.m. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to write for an hour or an hour and a half, or I'm going to write 2,000 words. And starting from that, you know, if one day you can work more, one day you can work less, but every single day you create this habit for your brain to be ready. Okay, it's 9 a.m., I'm in writing mode, I'm in creativity mode. You know, if you're not really there yet, you can pick up a book and read real quick, make sure that, you know, you really get your creative juices going. But then, once you get into the groove of it, your brain will get used to it, and it'll happen automatically. It'll go into your muscle memory. What you can to break down into habits, or what is a small task, I suggest that you use my 15-minute system for this. Here's what I mean. Everything that is a smaller task, like let's say finding the title of your book. What do you need to do for that? You need to start creating a list. Then you need to refine it, right? So say for 15 minutes, I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to brainstorm. I'm just going to write all the titles that I can come up with. And if I still feel, you know, creative and I'm coming up with a ton of titles at the end of those 15 minutes, then by all means, continue. But, you know, if I've gone for 15 minutes and then I'm like, okay, now I can move on to something else. Move on to the next 15-minute things. Move on to starting to write your copy for the back cover, for instance. And this way, what you do is you keep making your brain juice itself out. And it never juices itself out of one thing completely. If you only go for 15 minutes, you're not going to exhaust yourself trying to find a list. You're not going to get to that point where you're like, oh my god, I can't come up with anything. No, for 15 minutes, if you come up with some titles, that's great. If you can't come up with anything, then it's not like you spent an hour on it. You didn't waste that much time. You just spent 15 minutes. So that time that maybe you couldn't come up with anything during that time, so even though you couldn't come up with anything during that time, your brain will still use it. It will go into the back burner, and later on you will start coming up with titles. Later on, when this 15-minute time rolls around again, I promise you, you will have at least 1 or 2 titles to put down there. So this is my system for tackling overwhelm. Before I leave you, I just want to give you one last piece of advice. Take care of yourself. Don't let yourself skimp on sleep, because the more sleep deprived you are, the more your brain is operating like you're drunk. So make sure you sleep enough, make sure you take care of yourself, and during this time, give yourself permission to not beat yourself up over anything. Give yourself permission to just love yourself and accept yourself, and make sure that you check in with that inner wisdom inside yourself. It's the only way that you'll be able to keep your inner power going strong. You'll know what to do, you'll know when you're doing things wrong, and you'll know exactly what that perfect title should be. Did you like this video? Like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel. And please join the conversation over at linktoyourself.com. Come over there and tell me, what techniques do you use to deal with overwhelm? Before I leave you, I just want to tell you about a great resource that's available on my website. It's called The Ultimate Guide to a Vibrant Life. If you feel stuck, and if you still have some insecurities and doubts, but you really, really want to make an impact on the world and use your full potential, then you really want to read this